I'm excited to share more about Karen. So if you are just joining us, quick backstory. Karen has had a Shackley business for over 21 years. She was able to homeschool her 5 kids. And even when she couldn't work her business, her checks never stopped. She's earned over $535,000 with the business and just had one of her best months at $10,803. And what's neat is she just told me she didn't do a single, well, maybe neat isn't the word because it's not like this is good, bad, or otherwise, but she didn't do a single online or physical event. So no home parties, nothing like that. And not that I'm knocking them. I'm just saying that you can do it without doing them. So if you love to do parties, fantastic and good for you. But on the same level, if you don't, there is options for you. So again, thanks, Karen, for taking the time to join us tonight. Could you share with everyone just a little about who you are, where you're from?
Wow, in like 5 seconds. I am originally a Michigander. It means I'm from the state of Michigan. We moved to Virginia, lived here 32 years, as you can tell by my accent. So but my background is in public relations and advertising, and I stopped that when I had my kids, and but didn't like living on one income. Loved being an at-home mom, but not a single, not on the single income thing. I didn't like it. And I think that's one thing that draws a lot of women to businesses like Shackley is we want some financial independence. Started with another company. And the funny thing is, this was back and before you could double check anything anybody said. You just had the brochures, right? So all you had was the brochures that they sent you. And my dad was actually in a pyramid scheme. So when, yeah, he really was. And when I was 10 years old, my mom said, hide the newspaper. And I said, why? And she said, your father's upline's been arrested. So when I got into my first company, I was absolutely skeptical. I had like 100 questions for her. She's on the phone with her husband going, what is going on? Because people just believed her. And I decided to get into it. And it took me a while to get going in that company. That was because I was just like everybody else when they're new, learning. And I just didn't expect the learning curve to take over a year, but it did. Did okay, but I was not happy with that company. They had lots and lots of compensation plan changes. They felt like a teenager trying to figure out who they were going to be when they grew up. But and they had a good product. The problem was, their product could be very easily replicated without sacrificing quality, and then they could be, now I was competing on price and convenience. I didn't think that was a good marketing plan. The other thing is there were no inheritance rights and no equity. And I knew at this point, I'd been in that company for 8 years and had done over $100,000 worth of business in that company. And most of the products were $9.98. So 100,000 was actually quite big.
Wow.
And
that was Discovery Toys, right?
That was Discovery Toys. Yeah, they're still around, but they're very small now. So that was a good thing that I moved. I don't recommend that people jump companies. A lot of times, wherever you go, there you are. And so a lot of times it's not the company.
Share the key thing, though, that got you to join Shackley.
Oh, well, my sponsor, Pat Sanderlin, who also uses Your Freedom Project, kept coming around to my house. And eventually, she said to me one time, and I don't think she knew this was a hot button for me. She said, your kids can inherit this business. And I went, wait, what? And so I was one of those that I came on board for the business, not the products, because I had a lot of allergies and my doctor said there was nothing that would help them ever. And one of the things I did ask her, because my husband is a journalist and my background's in public relations and advertising and marketing. And so I know that companies can put best foot forward, and that does not always mean that you're getting the good thing. It just means they put their best foot forward. So she said, well, they have studies. And I said, what are they, like 6 guys around the water cooler saying, yeah, I feel better. And she said, no, they're real studies. And I said, well, I was going to go to med school, bring them on, I'll read them. So she did. And this was back in the day when we used something called paper. And so I got the journals that was like this high. And I tried to read them, and they were real. I just went, I guess I can just read the abstract, which is just a summary. And so my marketing plan was going to be this. It's too late for me, but these might help you. I was very, very doubtful. But the last straw was when I gave Tom, that's Pat's husband, and he's really good with the computer, with the calculator. And I said, here's my bonus recap at the time from Discovery Toys. Let's pretend, because you really can't go head to head when you're comparing compensation plans. Everybody's got them a little bit different. It's like it's its own world. And I said, but let's pretend this is a Shackley organization. What would the income be? So he just, took him like half an hour to figure it out. And Pat and I were talking, and he said, well, I figured out what it would be. And I said, sure, what? And he said, well, if you were in Shackley with the same organization, you would be earning $700 more a month and have a bonus car.
Wow.
I said, that's not a little difference. That's like a lot of difference. And the other thing that really drew me as I looked at things was that what I feel is unique in Shackley. Let's put it this way. In Discovery Toys, I had to, in November, December, because that was peak month in that company, I had to personally sell $5,000 worth of products. Remember, the average toy was $9.98. Myself and my team had to do 20,000, so we had to do a total of 25,000 in order for me to get the override. That was what it took to qualify for a bonus.
That's a lot.
Well, it is a lot. And one November, all my events canceled, and it's a short month because it's Thanksgiving,
right?
And people were traveling, and I was 8.5 months pregnant with my third child. I worked the phone so hard I couldn't talk in order to help everybody get up between myself and them the $25,000 in volume we needed in order for me to get my override check.
And so your key, the key piece again that Pat said was the inheritance, because the supplements weren't into the supplements. That wasn't your thing, right?
That I thought root health was important, because by that point I would be helping people with educational toys and going, your kid's kind of ADD, and if you looked into dairy allergies, because the toys can only go so far, right, with a child who doesn't feel well.
Right.
But I didn't believe that supplements would work. Nothing I'd ever have done, and I was pretty ill, and nothing I had done mattered. The doctor said I was a basket case. Nothing was going to help. So I believed him, right? Doesn't he know everything? So, but the other thing in Shackley, which is wonderful, 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 if you look, your personal volume never changes. The requirement never changes, whether you are a new distributor, new director, or a new presidential master coordinator. Your personal requirements are the same.
You're talking about the 100 PV.
Yes, and then when you're a director, the 2,000 minimum, regardless of what rank you are, your personal bit, that's huge. That's really stability, and that's what really gives you a lot of flexibility. So the other thing is the number of bonus cars that they gave away. I thought, this isn't just for a select few. This is really achievable for a lot of people.
Right.
So the more I got into Shackley, and then when I got on the products, in 6 weeks, I got off all my medications.
Because Pat made you take more vitamins, right? You weren't taking enough.
Yeah, Pat was like, take more vitamins. Yeah. Pat, this isn't working. Well, that's because you need more. So, well, that's stupid. He goes, no, not for you.
Okay. So let's fast forward. Internet era is actually, you were already into sort of the technology side of things with Discovery Toys. You said you'd kind of had your own little program to track.
I was one of the first people there to use. We got our first computer in '94, so I could use the Discovery Toys, the software an independent distributor Discovery Toys made.
Right.
Like, I hate paperwork. This is cool.
And then Shackley came along. They were still member over the phone.
Was like, no. It was back then. It was inventory. It was papers. You had to pay the bonuses by hand. Like, what the heck is this? So, but I was still making more income, and I still wanted to do it. I was just at that point. Of course, again, this was the '90s. Aghast at what we were. So, for those of you guys that are, some of you guys who were here before Roger and post Roger, it was just a huge change that he made. And around 2000, somebody had introduced me to Shackley Office, which was an early customer relationship management system, and SBOSS, which is a Shackley product thing, and I glommed onto those. And around 2003, I realized I wanted to use the internet, and it was just a little baby internet back then. And but I wanted to use it. I said, no, this is what we've got to do. I just didn't know how. Right? I mean, web pages were pretty awful looking as a whole, but nobody cared because they were new.
Right.
And so I started looking for ways how, kind of got into some things, and I learned a little bit about how to blog and a little bit about how to network online, and that was kind of crazy. And then some people in Shackley came out with an online marketing system, and it was generic.
Mm-hmm.
It mentioned things about Shackley, but it never used the name, and that was a whole new idea to me. And but I used that for a while, but that system was really a dump leads into the system, buy leads, see who comes out the end, and that's who you start talking to.
Right.
And if you could put in lots and lots and lots and lots of leads, and some people are still using it today, it's still around, and they were successful, but I'm telling you, they were working the phones 9, 10, 12 hours a day. The folks are really trying to make it work.
Right.
So you see this evolution, and what I did not like about that, again, I liked the internet, I liked the automated follow-up email system, and then it would be triggered when somebody went back to look at the website. I forget what that is, but it's like, now they're into a different email series. So it always felt like it kept up with them. But it didn't have the feeling of being in Shackley. Shackley has a unique culture. And we have a unique way of being with people and a unique way of describing what we do that really is different.
Right.
And I didn't feel like that system had that. So I don't know, Jody, probably Mr. Google showed me you or something. Somehow I found it. I don't remember even how. What was that? 07, 08?
Yeah, I think it was, yep, because I remember giving you a pre-tour of what I had envisioned quite a few years ago, 6 years before I actually finally was able to do it. But so you share with the viewers, you first came to us. What was it that you liked about YFP in the first place when you first saw it with the dancing?
I love the fact that it was Shackley, that it was describing. It didn't pound people or hype people about Shackley. I don't mean that, but you had the feeling and the history and the values that we bring to Shackley, the sense of being collegiate or being, that distributors aren't really competing against each other, but they're working together to serve the client. The fact that we are here, nowadays, you hear add value to the marketplace. And this might sound really silly, but I didn't know what they meant by that. I'm like, what do you mean by add value? I don't understand. And then I realized it's because in Shackley, we've been doing it like since day one. It's not like a new idea for us.
Right.
You
and
can't
clarify what that add value means.
Pardon?
What if clarify that? What have Shackley people been doing since day one? Help people understand what you mean by that.
We've been educating people about health. Even if somebody does not choose to purchase through us or join our team, they still learn something that's worthwhile. They still got good information. They are still more empowered as a consumer of health and about taking care of themselves. If it's about business, about being an entrepreneur, about how to do a business, than before they met us.
Right.
And now that's got a phrase called add value, but we've always been doing it. Dr. Shackley founded the company on that idea. That's why we were never affiliate marketing. That's why we retail, I think, for like a super slight sliver of time in the company's history. And he didn't like that because he wanted people talking to people and interacting with each other and educating each other and supporting each other.
And that's what YFP is all about.
Yeah, he wanted people to, in today's words, add value.
Right. And it's interesting because in his Dr. Shackley book by Robert Shook, that was the problem. It was a very uneducated marketplace. Everybody thought that their cold cereal was great and healthy and that the U.S. was the best fed country on the planet. So from day one, he had to educate people with content. We call it content marketing, which is what YFP has evolved into. So Cher, now you left us for a while and you went into politics and you had other things that took you in another direction. You were kind of rethinking where your business even fit into your life.
Yep.
And then you swung back. Share with the viewers why you came back to Shackley and to us.
Oh, sure. Well, I had never really left my Shackley business. It wasn't front burner. And I always got a check, by the way.
Right.
And I was drawn into some political activity, and then I started working doing social media messaging and branding for some U.S. Senate candidates, and that's like totally intense. I mean, I never left my computer. which is a drag, but that's how it was. And then, my daughter got ill, and we were I never left Shackley. I never wanted to give it up, right? Because it's inheritance rights for my kids. So I was always going to maintain it on some level.
Right.
And around a couple of years ago, I decided I'm going for it. I'm taking this as far as it can go, working towards Presidential Master, which is, that's probably like a 5 to 7 year plan, but that's where I'm going.
Right.
And when we got to that point of commitment, it was, all right, now how am I going to do this? How am I going to learn how to build an organization? How am I going to learn how to create a culture within my team? And how am I going to do something that's scalable? What do I really have to do to make that happen? And I had, at that point, had been doing my own thing. I had my own online presentations. But Mr. Jody, what happens when Google decides to change something? Do they tell you about it?
Right.
No, they do not. And so and if Shackley changes something, I was, 2 weeks doing all my own updates. It was insane, right? It was really insane, but I did it. And I went, I can't do this anymore. By that time, YFP had exploded in what it offered. And I remember talking to you, and I said, well, because I had been talking to my sister and brother-in-law have a business where they do logos and identity marketing and content marketing and branding, and they kind of have an agency now. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to them about website design and what I wanted it to look like. And I was sharing some things with you as I'm kind of thinking, well, how do I do this? How do I have my own voice to my own blog? Because I'd had one, but my webmaster was not maintaining it anymore. And so now I was going to be on the hook for $125 to $200 a month just for the maintenance and the security issues that every website has.
Right.
Because you constantly got to update that. And that, again, made me think, came back to you, and I found out you had done all this cool stuff that I wanted to do. I'd already written my own league magnets, but you had them and they were done. Right. That's awesome. I don't have to write